Okay, so before we get started, I like to talk about two different things. First, we're going to be discussing KitConnect, but Project Frog owns KitConnect, and I'd like to just talk about who Project Frog is a little bit. I think it helps us qualify the reasons why we are making KitConnect as a tool that focuses on industrialized construction. So Project Frog is a company that's been around for 15 years. We have a flat pack and volumetric system. We've been building light gauge steel and wood construction projects for a very long time. So about 5 years ago, we created some internal tools and some internal processes, and Autodesk took notice. And this is when Forge Fund was available. And so we were the recipients of some money from the Forge Fund, which helped create KitConnect. So KitConnect was born from the industry and is still maintained and being built by Project Frog, who is still building buildings. So I like to say we're in the trenches, we understand the problems, and this is one of the reasons why we're passionate about trying to release a tool that's specific for industrialized construction. And then there's a couple fundamental things that I like to coach before we get into KitConnect, especially in a 15-minute demo. So I'm just going to talk about kind of the process that one would go through first, and then we're going to talk about some core concepts. So first, we start off with design content. So we have loadable families and we have system families inside of Revit. The next step is, you have an end user that creates a KitConnect library, and there's nothing in it at the beginning. Now, the first step is to get Revit content and to publish this to this KitConnect library. And then once these elements are published, we can then start to arrange them in different configurations, right? And so these can be arranged as assemblies or modules. These are KitConnect terminologies, and then we have both, like I said, assemblies and modules, and then modules can have system families nested with assemblies, nested with elements. As long as it's published from the KitConnect library, they ultimately become accessible by end users inside of Revit. Once you have your library, you can clone your library. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can clone your library to kind of create an independent design connection to a specific file. And then from this point on, you just connect your library to as many Revit projects as you want, and then you're going to use that content inside of your file. So we have a library which holds and stores all of our arranged and designed content. And then we have a Revit project, which is attached to a library. As many Revit projects as you want can be attached to a single library. And then we're going to use that content within that library. So I want to make sure we kind of understand that before we jump into the next portion. And so what we discovered in industrialized construction, and then additionally what we've discovered after interviewing multiple customers, is there's a few core principles that I feel like industrialized construction needs to have in order to be successful. And one of those is we need to have structured design, we need to have command and control, and we need to be able to capture knowledge and distribute that knowledge amongst a project team. And so how is KitConnect going to offer a structured design? We're going to do that through a couple different features. First, we're going to offer user controls and permissions. And so if you know Revit, you can get into Revit. Anybody can do anything at any point in time, right? And that's great. This is what the tool's for. It's a great design tool. But what KitConnect is going to do is, as it relates to anything within the KitConnect library, we're going to force behaviors with user permissions. So certain users can author and arrange and design content. Certain users can only configure content. And then certain users can only use content, right? Not edit, not delete, things like that. So we add a layer of user permissions and control as it relates to components that are inside of the KitConnect library. And this is very fundamental in IC. We typically have a DFMA engineer. We typically have someone who might be doing documentation. We may or may not want the person doing documentation to have edit privileges to content that's been engineered and designed for fabrication. Next, KitConnect is going to create KitConnect elements, which we loosely discussed before. Elements, KitConnect elements are just loadable families, system families published to KitConnect, and then we're going to create, we're going to offer a structured design, which is a KitConnect module, and those are simply just arranged elements applied, arranged elements and applied configuration rules with a common insertion point. So it's basically taking KitConnect elements, arranging them, sharing an insertion point of those things so that we understand they have a relationship to each other, and then using them inside of the project. And because we have a structured design, we can then visualize this in a different experience. So we have a web application that is tied to this structured design. So you can see and hold and evaluate the content that's in your library. So we can look at arranged components. We can just look at individual elements. We can get out bill of materials. There's lots of different things we can do because we've got this structured design, if you will. Next, we're going to look at command and control. So what does KitConnect offer for command and control? Once again, user permissions. So user permissions are going to force us to give rules to users that we want to author content. We're going to force users to not author content, just like we had mentioned before. Next, we're going to kind of blaze through a couple videos. We're going to look at our Kit browser here. This is the liaison between our web application and the Revit environment. We're going to simply insert a module here, and we're just trying to show you what this looks like. So we have what's called a super select command. We've inserted some design content. Super select is going to understand that these things have a relationship to each other. And then we're just going to use Revit and all their other translation commands. We're going to super select, move, copy, rotate. But what's really important to understand here is KitConnect is going to offer some auditability concepts. So what I'm doing here is I'm going through as a user and I'm changing this engineered and designed content, right? I've deleted a component, I've rotated an element. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select any one of those components and I'm going to say, let's do an audit, or a Git content update is what we call it. And the audit is basically going to evaluate that geometry, say, hey, these things are not proper. We need to force the behavior to make sure that they are back at the original state of which they were designed. So we're going to fix that problem. Next, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at edit. And so edit, we're going to take that same content we just inserted, and we're going to make a configuration change. We're going to change the casework size here. We're going to go into the countertop now, and we're going to adjust the countertop heights to accommodate that new countertop change. And we're going to simply submit this change as the same design, but as a modification to that design. So when we submit this, you're going to see now that it's going to bump to a version 2. And then inside of our project environment, we're going to go and consume that change, right? So, and don't forget, this is any Revit project connected to this library would go and then consume that change. So we're going to do what's called a Git content update. You're going to see these things evaluate the new design. It's going to change those, and we're going to automatically, shrink and change the sizes to this new design size. Just as a quick note for all the Revit users in the room, we are maintaining element ID. So anytime that you come in and you make these configuration changes, any annotation, any documentation, any scheduling features, any third-party data extraction, clash detection, stuff like that, it's being maintained because ultimately we're maintaining element ID. Next, we're going to look at module configuration. So once again, we're going to use our Kit browser here. I'm going to simply insert a different module. And this module is going to be an exterior facade component. So it's going to be, concrete and a window. We're going to insert it twice. You're going to see it pop up in the 3D view over there. So this is just a very simple representation of a module, right? I'm going to use a colorize feature here so that you see that these things are the same. And now what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this configuration. So the concept here is you're using this almost like a template, right? Very similar to what, a templated family might be, except we're going to take this module and we're going to duplicate it, and it's going to create the same exact configuration. So what I'm doing here is I'm duplicating this configuration, giving it a unique name. You're going to see now that we have 2 modules pop up in our Kit browser. And before I insert this, I'm going to use our configure tool. And so when I first set this module up, I created some configuration rules. This is called an option set. Option sets are like a Rolodex of parts, or parts like alternate parts that can be used in place of other components. So I've used my configure tool. I'm now going to insert this geometry. And now what you'll notice is it's the exact same configuration with the alternate window that I've chosen within my configuration. I'm going to insert it twice. You'll see it appear in the 3D view. with a different style of window. All right. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to duplicate that same module preset, the very first one. And we're going to do it in a reverse order, though. After we duplicate, we're going to insert, and then we're going to configure. So configuring can happen at any stage in the design or fabrication process, right? Important to note. So we're duplicating this module preset. We're giving it a unique name. I'm going to insert this module preset. And what you're going to notice is it's going to look exactly like the yellow one in the 3D view. And that's because we haven't configured it yet. So we're inserting our module. We're going to do a colorize, I believe, is the next step to show that each module is, to show you what each module is. We're going to take that green module, the third one that we configured, and now we're going to configure it post insertion. Once again, we're just going to simply change the window, and then we're going to apply another rule set, which is called part suppression. We are going to unsuppress a sunshade. We're going to update our module preset, and you're going to see now that those sunshades get added. So modules in configuring is a kind of a core foundational piece of KitConnect. So across the board, we can audit content at the instance, we can configure content on the fly, and then we can edit content, update content. Next, what we're going to look at is another video. We're going to look at some design automation using Dynamo. Additionally, we're going to look at what KitConnect calls level of detail. And then we're going to look at a bill of material service that KitConnect also offers. So
while this is running, or maybe before it runs, Scott, we have a few questions coming in, really, really wonderful ones that I couldn't have come up with myself.
Great. So ask them at any time.
First off, the first question was, do you see any limitations in terms of the Revit scale and its limitations, like the 1/32 or smaller, cannot exceed larger than 30,000 feet, these types of things? Do you see this being a problem in fabrication, and maybe something that Autodesk should look into in terms of these scale limitations? Have you, or has KitConnect?
Yeah, for sure. I've seen that error many times. Yeah. Typically when we model something that's at a really small scale, we model it virtually. I know that sounds weird, but like we'll just say like you have a length of a stud that's say 8 foot long. I'm not modeling fasteners in for that stud, but I know how many fasteners are in that stud because I know a length and I know an offset value for sheathing for that stud. So typically, at least for us, we don't model things to that small of a degree. We model those using conditional formats. Like we know that we might need a connector between two wall panels, but we may not model that because there's nothing that it can clash with. And then additionally, that's just something that we can add as a quantity, not something that has to be evaluated and then quantified, in my experience.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to resolve it, just with the conditional statement. Absolutely. The next question is, it looks like you're dealing with a repository from KitConnect. Is that tied to the main KitConnect library, or is that something that you can make more project specific? Is the versioning tied to kind of your standard library, or is that kind of an offshoot?
No, great question. The library is specific to the version. So whatever your library has is what's going to be distributed to your project. At the end of the year, we're going to be able to have versioning control. So you can consume a certain version or not consume a certain version. But right now it's a forced version update.
That's fantastic. And what about a user that doesn't have KitConnect? We do a lot, especially on BIM 360, maybe we have a joint venture and an architect that doesn't necessarily have this program, or an engineer who doesn't have this program. How would that work? Would it lock the element in some way, or would it be restrictive in some way in that scenario?
No, not at all. They're just Revit elements. If the user wants to interact with KitConnect components, like move a module, things like that, we have a user tier that literally is just able to select components. And that's a free user tier. So.
And the last one, before we get into Dynamo, which I'm super excited about, I'm guessing you're going to let everybody know where they can get all of this software.
Yeah. So yeah, you just need to connect. You need to connect with us. That's it. And then there's 1 or 2 ways that we can set up trials for you guys. Absolutely.
There we go. Get a trial. Get it going.
Cool. All right, so what we're going to see here is I'm going to insert what we call a bounding box. We have 3 different ways to represent geometry and modules here. This box is a lightweight mass. Revit sees it as nothing, basically, or a mass. KitConnect sees all the parts and pieces, right? So Revit, very lightweight, but you can look inside of KitConnect and it's going to tell you all the parts and pieces. I'm now going to switch this level of detail to show all parts and pieces. I'm going to go back into my bill of material and you're going to see that nothing has changed. So high level or low level, KitConnect sees all components at a full level of detail inside of our web application. I'm now running a Dynamo script. So we've connected most of our features to Dynamo. And so now you can insert modules at a bulk rate at high level or low level and get a full bill of material based on just these boxes, right? I can change these boxes if I want. It's still going to be the same bill of material. I can show all level, I can show part level, but we have exposed most of our features inside of Dynamo because we've got most of the people that we're dealing with have already, they're 3 years into Dynamo automation. Okay, and some of the last things we're going to look at is going to be knowledge capture and distribution. Once again, I'm going to say that user roles and permissions are going to help us here. And then what I'm showing here is just different configuration methods, right? We showed configuration as it relates to the end user inside of the project environment. Now I'm showing configuration as it relates to the end user, that is your DFMA engineer, the person that has the privileges to both edit and configure and create content. And so, we have configuration at the end user level, and we have configuration, the creation of the configuration and the rules within KitConnect. And that's kind of what I'm showing here. As a secondary part here, I've mentioned this a few different times, but this is super important. This is one thing that we've learned at Project Frog as a company that builds buildings is one of the major powers of KitConnect is one library connects to multiple projects. So there's plenty of times where you might have one project that has multiple building files, and there's geometry that needs to be shared between those buildings. The only way to really do that truly is through a link. There's not really any other successful way to continuously edit and change these components and have them all propagate to a Revit file. Do this at a scale, it becomes really hard to manage. So this is where KitConnect is going to come in and really kind of turn into your rock star. It's going to let you control, command, and create and distribute your content in hundreds of different ways. And then what we really like to show here is with all of these things in conjunction, you're going to get continuous optimization. And this is one thing that Project Frog has really reaped the benefits of, is every single project we do, because we use KitConnect, is going to enable us to go to the next project with the same lessons that we've learned from the previous project, because we're editing it in a library. The next project kicks off, we've got all the lessons learned from the previous one. So we've been able to continuously optimize our building based upon, anything from a cost input, based upon anything from a fabrication input, based upon anything from a user feedback input. So we're able to continuously optimize our building. Each one is going to be, slightly different, but each one is going to be slightly better. Okay, I'll be quiet now. I'll let somebody else go. Thank you.